Hey guys, Stefan Fischer here from All Off-Road. I hope you guys are well. Today's video will be an interesting one because I give you my view whether the Allpowers R1500, which cost $999, is as good as my favorite EcoFlow Delta 2, which cost $1,999. Can a unit half the price of my reference unit, the EcoFlow Delta 2, stack up? Let's find out. For full disclosure, Allpowers contacted me and asked me whether I would be interested in reviewing and testing one of their units, and I was curious to see whether a unit which is half the price of my most favorite unit, the EcoFlow Delta 2, could be any good. And that's why I agreed to test yet another battery bank, because truly I have enough of them at home here. But I think that is a test which is interesting for you guys. And I give you my opinion whether you could save yourself $1,000 purchasing the Allpowers over the EcoFlow Delta 2. The content of this video is based on my honest opinions, personal experiences and my own testing. The product featured in this video was provided free of charge for testing and review purposes. However, this is not a paid review. I strive to provide accurate and truthful information. However, opinions expressed are my own and may not reflect the views of others. Please note that results may vary depending on individual circumstances and usage conditions. Any product, service or company mentioned is not endorsed unless stated otherwise. Viewers should conduct their own research and make decisions based on their own judgment. This video is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as professional advice. I just returned from a 10-day trip to Moreton Island and Fraser Island, and I have used this unit with me on that trip to do all my induction cooking. But let's first have a look at the specs of the Allpowers R1500. The Allpowers R1500 has a nominal capacity of 1152 watt-hours, and the usable capacity is quite good with 923 watt-hours. The cell chemistry is LFP LiFePO4 and it's rated to 3500 cycles, so the cells should last you around 10 years if none of the other electronic internals gives up. The unit has a 1800 watt pure sine wave inverter with a 3000 watt peak. The unit has a built-in AC charger with a maximum charge current of 1500 watt. It can recharge the unit from 0 to 80% within 45 minutes. It also uses a standard AC charging cord, which is great. The solar input supports 12 to 60 volt with 13 amp with a maximum input of 650 watt via an XT60 connector. The UPS functionality operates within 15 milliseconds and the unit supports Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for app connectivity. It weighs a whopping 16.7 kilogram and the dimensions are 413 mm by 312 mm by 265 mm. So let's first have a look at the output ports. On the 12 volt side you have two USB-A ports with 18 watt each and two USB-C ports with 100 watt each. You also have a 12 volt cigarette lighter output with 10 amp 120 watt maximum. On top of the unit you have two wireless charging pads with 30 watt each. The unit has four 230 volt AC output ports. Unfortunately the plug orientation is upside down compared to a standard plug, which could cause some issues with larger plugs like I have here with this unit. All output plugs are on the front of the unit, which is great. You also need to charge the unit, so let's have a look at the input ports the R1500 has. If you look at it from the front, on the left hand side of the unit you have the AC input and the XT60 solar input as well as a fuse. On the right hand side you have two expansion input ports. However, at the time of making the video there was no expansion unit available in Australia. The overall look and feel of the unit is pretty good. I think the design is okay, but in my opinion it does not have the same quality and feel as EcoFlow Delta 2. You feel a bit more squeaking and the plastic doesn't seem to be as solid as the EcoFlow. Also, I find the handles not that comfortable, especially if you carry it one-handed, because you can't really grip through. But overall, I think it is a good quality for the price. So let's now talk weight, space and cost per watt hour, because these are important considerations if you intend to carry the battery in your four-wheel drive. The Allpowers R1500 offers 80% of its advertised capacity as usable, compared to the EcoFlow Delta 2, which provides 75%. However, when looking at the power to weight ratio, the EcoFlow comes out ahead, with 64.17 watt-hour per kilogram, while the Allpowers delivers 55.27 watt-hours per kilogram. In terms of cubic space, the EcoFlow is also more efficient, occupying 0.023 cubic meters compared to the Allpowers at 0.0658 cubic meters. If space and weight are critical for you, the EcoFlow is a better choice, even though it comes at double the price. This is why I continue to carry the EcoFlow Delta 2 on my trips rather than the Allpowers. However, when it comes to cost per usable watt hours, the Allpowers wins easily, offering Australian $1.08 per watt hour compared to EcoFlow's $2.47 per watt hour, well over double the cost. So let me explain how I used the Allpowers R1500 over the past few weeks, and in particular over the 10-day trip to Moreton and Fraser Island. I stored it in the back of my four-wheel drive behind the rear seats, because unfortunately it didn't fit above my drawers where I usually keep the EcoFlow Delta 2. The Allpowers form factor and size didn't suit my setup well, and I likely wouldn't have brought it if I wasn't testing it. But that's specific to how I pack, and it might be different for you. I used the unit every day for induction cooking, and I was able to get around 3 to 4 dinners out of the battery before it ran out. If we were stationary for more than a day, I recharged it with the Allpowers 200 watt solar panel. That worked well, even though our camp spots were often under trees, which slowed down charging. When we were driving, I charged it via my 700 watt red arc inverter. Since the unit doesn't allow you to set the AC charge current, I had to switch to the silent charging mode to keep it below 700 watt, but that worked fine. The unit was exposed to sand, dust and a fair amount of vibration while bouncing around in the back of the Land Cruiser, especially on Fraser's inland tracks. I also used it every couple of days to offload footage from the trip. It performed well with no issues and did the job as expected. The only downside were the size and weight. I had injured my rib just before the trip, and moving around 17 kg wasn't ideal for recovery. Back in the shed, I ran the usual capacity tests and checked all the fundamentals, and everything worked as expected. Let's now have a look at what I found good about the Allpowers R1500. The Allpowers R1500 offers great value for money, especially at its sales price of $999, down from $1,599. It provides 923 watt-hours of usable capacity in 12-volt mode, which is solid for most applications. The unit includes both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but the app connectivity isn't the most straightforward and is probably the weakest part of the unit. It also features two 15-watt wireless charging pads, which is a nice convenience, and I use them quite a bit for my phone, but also my AirPods. This is a budget-friendly device with good functionality, including a general 220-volt power plug and pass-through charging, meaning you can charge the unit while using it. It also has UPS functionality, providing backup power when needed. The R1500 produces 53 decibels, which is quieter than the EcoFlow Delta 2. While it can deliver up to 1800 watt continuously, it will shut down after 1 minute if you push it to 1900 watt. I had no issues running my induction cooker of this unit, and overall it performed well given its price point. But nothing is perfect, and neither is the Allpowers R1500, and with the unit only half the price, at present at least, of the EcoFlow Delta 2, there are certainly more shortcomings than, for example, at the EcoFlow. I'll start by saying that while the Allpowers R1500 has its issues, none of them are deal breakers. That said, it's simply not as refined as the EcoFlow Delta 2, which is to be expected from a unit that costs half the price. One of the main issues I encountered was that I couldn't get the unit to charge from AC at the advertised 1500 watt. The best I managed was 1000 watt in fast mode. Additionally, there was no change in fan noise between mute and fast mode. While 54 dB is quieter than the EcoFlow Delta 2, I was hoping for a bit more control over the fan speed and for the mute setting to be quieter. Another minor inconvenience is that the 4 AC outlets are upside down. It's not a big deal, but I couldn't plug in my 220 volt power meter because there wasn't enough space below the outlet. The lack of a 12 volt cigarette lighter charging cable was a disappointment, but it's not unique. It would have been nice to have one included though. In terms of size, the unit is larger and heavier than I expected for its capacity. The handles aren't very comfortable either, and carrying it one-handed can be tricky because you can't get a full grip on the handle, making it more likely to slip out of your hand. While the plastic housing isn't bad, the overall build quality and tolerances aren't quite up to standard of the EcoFlow Delta 2. One more thing to note is that the Wi-Fi doesn't work unless you've already established a Bluetooth connection, which adds an extra step that's not necessary on other units. I also found it annoying that you can't adjust how long the display stays active. It turns off after a short time and there's no way to change these settings. I, for instance, like to have my display always on. Lastly, there are 2 expansion ports, but no expansion batteries are available, at least not in Australia, which limits the potential for upgrading. Now let's move on to the app and connectivity, which are definitely the weakest aspects of the Allpower R1500. The app itself is very basic with limited features, but even getting it connected to your phone or Wi-Fi can be a real challenge. First, Bluetooth has to be manually enabled every time you switch a unit on and off. You do this by holding down the power button for a few seconds, but even once paired, the app often won't retain the connection for long. You might find yourself having to redo the pairing process every few days. To connect to Wi-Fi, you first need to establish a Bluetooth connection, which feels redundant. On top of that, you need to create an account with Allpowers, either through Google or similar, before you can proceed. The app also can't scan for available Wi-Fi networks like most apps. Instead, you have to manually enter the network name and password, and that's made even worse by the fact that the text is dark gray on black background, so it's nearly impossible to read what you typed. If you make a mistake or forget what you typed, you're in trouble. After all that, I couldn't reconnect to the unit a second time. It would just hang on the connection screen. The connection also doesn't seem to last. Sometimes I could reconnect easily the next day, but other times I had to go through the whole process again after a few days. And today, for instance, I just could not get it to work again. One of the most frustrating things is that the app doesn't notify you when it's disconnected from the unit. So there's an issue with the Wi-Fi or with the Bluetooth. The unit is in Bluetooth mode. I connected already before to it, but now it never updates. The unit was empty. I just did a capacity test. It's charging, is at 2%, and see what it shows here. It does not update. It does actually seem to update into fast mode here, but now that made it now update. There is something wrong with the unit. I had to actually completely delete it from here, recreate it, and even then it wouldn't really update. Now it updated. So there is some issue with that. More than once I thought I was looking at live data, only to realize I was seeing old data because the connection had dropped without warning. It looks like there is a firmware update available for my unit, but you need a password to update it, which I don't have. After reaching out to support, I was told not to bother with the update, which is disappointing and a bit strange. In summary, the app and connectivity are the weakest parts of the Allpowers R1500. Hopefully these can be resolved with future app or firmware updates. That said, none of these issues impacted me during my trip or in general use. So there are more annoyances than deal breakers. While this is not a direct comparison of both units, I want to give you a side-by-side of the features of the Allpowers R1500 and the EcoFlow Delta 2. Remember, you can pause the screen if you would like to compare for a bit longer. So what is my final conclusion? Well, if capacity is your priority, say you don't have a built-in battery system in your car and need maximum capacity, then the Allpowers R1500 is the way to go. It gives you 19% more usable capacity compared to the EcoFlow Delta 2. However, for me, size and form factor are much more important. The EcoFlow takes up less space, which is a big deal when packing for trips. So in terms of space efficiency, the EcoFlow is the clear winner for me. When it comes to overall build quality, the Allpowers isn't bad, but it's just not as refined as the EcoFlow. You can tell the difference in the finish and feel, and especially in the app usability, where the EcoFlow is much more polished and straightforward. Now, in terms of price, if both units are at full price, the Allpowers gives you 33% more value per watt hour. If you are on a budget and don't mind the extra size and weight, the Allpowers is definitely a good option to consider. But when I started this video, the Allpowers was on sale for 999 Australian dollars, which was an absolute steal. By the end of filming though, EcoFlow had also dropped to 1,299 Australian dollars, which makes it a great deal as well. So here's the bottom line. If size doesn't matter to you and you want that extra 19% capacity, go with the Allpowers and save a few bucks. But if you value a more compact and refined unit and you are not fussed about having that extra capacity and a little noisier unit, I'd recommend the EcoFlow Delta 2. It's better fit for my needs. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Keep in mind I have referral links for both units in my video description, which will give me a little kickback and helps the channel. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoy the content of my channel. As always, I would greatly appreciate if you could share, like and subscribe, and I would really appreciate if you could head over to Patreon or buy me a coffee, and with the equivalent of a cup of coffee or two per month, you can really help me creating these videos for you. There's often a big misconception of what YouTubers like me earn. As I mentioned previously, the YouTube channel is a hobby for me. I have run businesses my whole life. I'm retired now, but I can tell you I would never run All Off-Road as a business because it is just a horrible business idea. The YouTube channel really has never contributed to my living expenses, and the income is really minimal. Okay, I've got a unit here for free, but I've already got 4 or 5 units here, so really that is no additional value for me. If I sell that unit, I probably would get $400-500 maybe for it. And the YouTube AdWords revenue for a review of a product like this is, if I'm lucky, $100 or so, and that is for the lifetime of that video. So there is really zero financial incentive for me to review any of these units. Why do I do it? Because obviously I'm retired, so it gives me something to do, and I love comparing stuff. I love using new stuff on my travels, and I thought it would be a worthwhile comparison whether a unit half the price can be as good as something like the EcoFlow Delta 2, which is double the price. Also, we got to consider, as I found out with a certain battery manufacturer, that actually telling the truth can cost you a lot of money and can end you in court. So that's why I really appeal to people. If you like my content, if you want to see me continue creating this content, I really need more support. I don't expect to make money out of my YouTube channel, but I really would like to run it that it at least evens out and doesn't cost me money. There's really only a few ways I could achieve that. I could accept sponsorship, I could accept money from companies who want me to review their products. And trust me, there are plenty of offers, yeah, of me doing a paid review. But that is just not what I do. I never want to be tied to a company. I always want to say it how I see it. So the only other way really for me is to get some more income through Patreon or buy me a coffee, because YouTube AdWords is really absolutely negligible unless you're one of the very big ones and say have between 500,000 to 1 million plus subscribers. Then YouTube revenue becomes interesting, but with a niche channel like mine, that will never happen. So if you like my content, if you want me to continue to do product reviews, please head over to Patreon or buy me a coffee and support me there. And with the equivalent of a cup of coffee or two per month, you can really help me creating these videos for you. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you along the tracks.